What's good, everybody? Back at it again. I'm Mr. Peters. Today's video, I'm going to be focusing on inequalities and interval notation and set notation. So I'm going to show you guys exactly what that is and try to give you a very easy explanation so it's simple for you guys, okay? So set notation and interval notation, guys, these are just other ways to express our answer for an inequality, all right? And I want to start off by saying we're going to use a term called infinity, right? So we have positive infinity, which is on the positive side of the number line, and negative infinity, which is on the negative side. And understand that when we use our interval notation, we're always going to have parentheses around the infinity sign because those numbers are not included. All right. So this is what I mean. So we go through our problem, x is greater than 5. So we know that that is an open circle and we're shading towards the numbers that are larger than 5. So there goes the graph to our answer. Now, when we talk about interval notation, and I'm just going to abbreviate this out here, we're saying what numbers are included or what is the range of numbers. And to do the interval notation for this, right? We know that since it's a open circle, there's going to be a parentheses around 5. Then we're going to put a comma and the infinity symbol. And basically it's saying that all the numbers that are included are going to be larger than 5. Okay. Now we go over to set notation. So set notation, you're basically rewriting your inequality. And this is what I mean. So we're going to use these squiggly lines that are like braces, right? So it starts off with this squiggly line or that braces, right? And we're gonna have whatever variable we're talking about. So we're talking about x. So we're gonna put x and we're gonna have this vertical line which stands for such that. And then we're gonna put our answer. Okay, so our answer here will be x such that x is greater than 5. And all that's saying is the numbers or the answer included for this set of numbers is larger than 5. So this is what we're talking about when we're talking about inequalities, set notation, and interval notation. So what I'm going to do now, we're going to go on to another problem and we're going to try to tie everything together. So in our second problem, the first difference we need to understand is that our inequality now has a or equal to sign under it. So when I go graph this, right, I know this is a closed circle and it's telling me that x is less than or equal to -1. So that means I'm shading towards the numbers that are smaller, and that is the negative side. So we have our answer, we have the graph for it. So now they're asking us for the interval notation, right? So let's go out in another color and let's just keep this in blue. So we have our interval notation. So when we look at the interval notation now, we're saying, okay, what is the interval? What is the set of numbers that are included? And what we want to understand is, hey, we're reading this from left to right. So we're starting on the negative infinity side. So when we're talking about interval notation, remember that infinity always has a parentheses around it. So we start from negative infinity and we have our comma, and this graph is going to come all the way up the number line to -1. Now, the difference here is that because it's or equal to, instead of using a parentheses around 1, we're now going to have a bracket because 1 is included in our answer. So when we're talking about interval notation for problem number 2, this is what it's going to look like, and we're going to have a bracket around it. Now, set notation, as I said, and what I teach my students with set notation is after you write it out, like, x such that, all you're really doing is rewriting the inequality as an answer. So when we look, right, we have the braces, x such that, and then we're expressing our final inequality. So we're going to put x such that x is less than or equal to -1. So understand that interval notation, set notation, it's really all the same exact thing. So it's just a play on words. All they're asking you is, hey, can you list your answer in another way? All right. So we took care of simple inequalities, right? Now we're going to move on to compound inequalities. So I'm going to talk about set notation and interval notation when we're talking about compound inequalities. So we're talking about and inequalities and or. And it's a little bit different, but it's the same concept. So we should remember that with our or graphs, they always run in the opposite way. So that means we're going to have two separate, dots on the graph, I should say. So the first one tells us that x is less than -3. So automatically we all know, okay, x is less than -3. That is an open circle, right? Open circle and is going to the left. And then now we move over to x is greater than or equal to +6. So now closed circle going the opposite direction. All right. So how do we do the interval notation for a compound inequality like this? So I'm going to show you guys. The difference here is we're going to use a symbol that looks like a U. And this symbol for math, it stands for or. So if you see something like this, is understand you're talking about a or inequality, okay? Compound inequality. So when we're trying to express this answer now, right? And we're gonna float right over the answer here. When we write the interval notation for x is less than -3. So when you look at the graph, right? This graph starts from negative infinity. So let's write that infinity sign in again, like we had it down in the other problem. Let's write it above. All right. So understand how all these things are tying together. It's the same question. So now they're saying to us, hey, interval notation, what are the numbers in this set? Right? So what we want to do now is basically say that we're starting from negative infinity. And remember, the infinities always have parentheses around them. So negative infinity, and that graph is coming all the way down up until -3. And because we have a open circle, that means we'll have a parentheses now when we're talking about the interval notation. All right. So we got the first inequality, right? I'm sorry, not inequality, the first interval notation. So I'm going to write that down below in white next to that U. So this is the first part of our answer. Our graph is going to start from negative infinity and it's going to come all the way up to 3, but 3 is not included. Then our graph now is going to pick up from +6. And remember, 6 is included because it's or equal to. So we will have a parentheses. And where is this graph heading? Towards the positive numbers that are greater than 6, right? So that means that it's going to infinity. We're going to put the infinity symbol because we cannot list all those numbers. And now we got the second part of our problem. We could put it down after the U, right? I just call it the U just to, keep it simple. So what this is saying now is, right, x is going to be less than -3 or x is greater than or equal to 6. And that's just basically saying the same our answer from the graph, right? That's the same thing. So please understand what I'm talking about, guys. When I say interval notation, set notation are very, very similar. Now, what we want to do, we're going to talk about the set notation now, okay? And set notation is just about the same thing. All we're gonna do now is it's basically gonna be longer. So I'll show you what I mean right now. So let's take a quick look. All right. So now when we're talking about the set notation for this, guys, we're gonna start it off the same way. So we're going to have, and let's just slide this back over. We're gonna have x, right? Don't forget our brace, such that x is less than -3 or x is greater than or equal to 6. And then we're going to close this with the other braces. So still the very same thing, guys. All we're really adding to the problem is the braces, X, and such that. So just please understand what's going on when we're talking about interval notation, okay? All right. So, very last problem we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about the and inequalities. And just remember with these inequalities, it doesn't say the word and, but we know that the graph is going to run towards each other. All right. So, when I look at this last problem here, we write the infinity signs in. And I'm just doing this so you guys kind of remember where they come in when we're talking about our interval notation. All right. So we're going to go and we're going to place the dots on the graph. So we're talking about -2. And because it's less than, we're just going to have an open circle. And then 8 is or equal to. So we know this is a closed circle. And what this saying is that x is greater than -2 and less than or equal to 8. So this is where the and comes from, right? Because it's less than I mean, no, it's less than -2 and greater than -2 and less than or equal to 8. So sorry for that. All right. So we're going to shade in the middle now. And we're basically saying that these are the only numbers included in the set, right? Between -2 and 8. So now we're going to go down to our set notation, right? I'm sorry, not set notation, interval notation. Move the screen by accident. So when we're talking about interval notation, when we're talking about interval notation, guys, just remember this part right here. So this interval notation is going to be different. So we're talking about the numbers that are included in the graph. So there's not going to be any infinity in this one because it's not going all the way down to the negative side or all the way down to the positive side, right? They're staying in between those two numbers. So we're going to have a parentheses around -2, right? Because it's an open circle. And then 8, we will have a bracket. So this is what the interval notation will look like. This is the only inequality that will not include the infinity sign in it. So as we now close up this video and we do the set notation. Spelling is so off today, sorry. When we're doing the set notation, now it's going to be the same thing, right? So we have our braces, x such that, and then we're going to put our same inequality, right? So we know that -2 is less than x, and x is less than or equal to 8. So thank you guys for joining us today. This is Algebra 1 with Mr. Peters. Remember, guys, compound inequalities, set notation, interval notation are all the same things. Please join us next week when we do a part 2 of this video, and we're going to slow it down and dive deeper into it so you guys can really understand what's going on. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. If you like this video, we're going to ask that you like it for us, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we want to tell you guys thank you so much for the support.